This is the story of the choir of St Columbs Cathedral in Londonderry. It's the story of 6 choir boys who grew from childhood to manhood in 20 turbulent years. Protestants in a mainly Catholic city. These were the boys of the choir 20 years ago today when the army intervened. And this is their account of how they saw the years that followed and of what the Troubles did to their city and their lives.
It was a great feeling in the cathedral. The cathedral's a fantastic place, so it was great to go every week. You know, it was like our own little club.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was brilliant. Like the friendship and comradeship, like, you were just like a unit. Best days of your life, really. I was in it for 5 years. It was 5 of the most enjoyable years of my life. It was a great bunch of lads.
What first changed their young lives was the sight of thousands of Catholics marching through the streets. Although most of the choir were far too young to understand it, the Catholic civil rights movement was demanding equal treatment from the Protestant majority who'd run the state for over 50 years. Catholics were determined to overturn the Protestant old order of which the choir and their families were part. Ian Gallagher was 14 at the time. He was worried.
It was they who were doing all the marching. It was they who were getting all the concessions. And I mean, everything just seemed to be falling away. The Protestant people were losing everything. I mean, I can remember one day, a civil rights march, and up until then, it had always been rerouted and it had never managed to come through the city. But no, this Saturday, they marched up Ferricky Street, up Carley Road and up Ferricky Street and through Ferricky Gates. I suppose that was another milestone removed. I mean, the city was, well, within the city walls, certainly anyway, was part of the Protestant heritage, and this was something that they had managed to take over as well. And after watching them march through, there I was, I can remember coming home and going into the, suppose what was a sitting room, and crying. I mean, that's how much I felt. It hurt so much to hear that I'd lost something that day, that somebody had taken something away from me. So I cried that day.
Some members of the choir actually went out and watched the riots from the walls around the cathedral that gave a grandstand view of the Catholic bogside below. The riots made getting to choir practice 3 times a week a hazardous business, though Alan Robinson usually made it. Alan joined the choir when he was 9.
I remember the barricades, the sandbag barricades with the corrugated iron. I remember the disturbances, bricks and bottles littered over the road, burning cars. Since I was born, I've known nothing but trouble. So I thought it was part of growing up. As I grew up, I became more aware of what was happening around me, but I still took it for granted. This happens, it must happen everywhere. When I was growing up, I didn't have any Catholic friends. I really didn't know what a Catholic was until the age of 16. Really, I had no experience at all with Catholics.
What did you think about Catholics before you met them?
I really believed that it was the Catholics that were causing all the trouble.
One of Alan's friends was the choir's practical joker, who used to terrify old ladies walking through the graveyard at night by jumping out in his white surplice. For Paul Sayers, rioting was just another game.
People would go up with Union Jacks, people would go up with tricolours and wave them at each other, intimidate each other, and that's how most of the rioting started then. But it was pure boredom, it was something to do. It was fun to do, it was a thing to do on a Sunday afternoon.
Did you know what you were rioting for?
No idea. I had no resentment against Catholics or anything, but it was just the fact that there was something to do on an afternoon.
As the IRA bombed the city centre in 1972, the anxious parents of the boys in the choir became ever more nervous about letting their children go down the town. This was especially true of the youngest member, Michael Jordan. He'd been allowed to join at the age of 6 because of the promise he showed, and he lived only a minute's walk from the city centre.
We were out shopping and there was several bombs went off in the town centre when we were there. I think I was only about 5, 6, and I can remember it as well to this day. And it was really frightening because a bomb went off at one end of the street, so everybody was going to the other end, and then maybe one went off at that end of the street. You know, when you're so young, it's such a hell of a fright. You know, because like it destroyed quite a few premises that day. I remember it very, very clearly in my mind, and I think always will.
The dean of the cathedral was Dublin-born George Good. He was appointed 2 years before the Troubles began and in time became the choir's father figure.
But there was a tremendous shift of population in the city over that time. From where, when I went to the cathedral first, 2/3 of my congregation were living very close to the cathedral, and all on what's called now the city side. Well before I retired, 2/3 of my congregation were living on what's called the water side, and only 1/3 were left to the city side.
In the waterside, Protestant parents felt they could breathe more freely, with the river as a buffer between them and the Catholics. Most of the choir boys grew up in this exclusively Protestant enclave. They became teenagers in a narrow world of red, white and blue. The waterside was home to 13-year-old Mervyn Lewis, who looked forward to the 6pence a week he received for turning up to choir practice.
At that time there wasn't much on during the night for young people, especially at that age group. If you were older, you could have got the community centres or whatnot, but you went to choir practice 3 nights a week, and you were at church 3 times on a Sunday, and you were always together.
Mervyn often used to cross the river with his friend Paul Sayers.
It'd be scary going to choir practice and things then, because the army moving in, more police about, the noise and things, like it was getting a bit frightening.
Whenever you were going over to choir practice at night, you always got a lift over, or the dean or the curate or somebody, choir master, always made sure that you all got a lift home. One night we were coming out and we decided, as young boys would, we'll do our own thing tonight, we'll not bother going home.
We went down Shipley Street, a big hill down into where the Guildhall is, the bottom of Shipley Street. There was a massive explosion, and I can remember things flying by our heads and things, you know.
Soldiers and everybody was running mad round the place. You're standing beside this car talking to the driver, wondering where the explosion was. He didn't know. He just said it must be down the quay somewhere.
Because we're so close, the noise was deafening. I went on down, and curious as we were at that age, we went round the Guildhall to have a look to see what had happened.
He said it must be down the quay because there's a dead pigeon. And somebody flicked it over and says, that's not a pigeon. The counted was 5 toes on it. It was somebody's foot.
It didn't really affect us at the time, so we went round the back and we had a look, and there was torsos and things they got lying about, which shocked us a lot.
So that was a shock to, you know, that was a damn shock to me, you know. It wasn't worth tuppence when I got home.
I didn't go back to the choir for a while. I was scared to go back because of this, nightmares and everything, and it had a great impression on me for a long time. Afterwards, there was the fear of walking past parked cars. There was that sort of fear, and that stayed with me for a long time.
As the violence grew worse, some of the choir were attracted to those who wanted to take the law into their own hands. In 1972, the Ulster Defence Association, the UDA, was born, a Protestant response to IRA violence. Some of the choir were tempted to join.
I can remember donning the combat jacket and dark glasses and walking from Irish Street to Duke Street as part of a UDA march. I mean, I was never a member of the UDA because I don't think there was any sort of official membership list. But it was a UDA organised march, and, well, I mean, a number of us who were just Protestants took part in it.
Did the uniform make you feel big?
Oh yes, oh we were the lads that day, yeah. You know, dark glasses, probably a hat as well maybe, and a dark green combat jacket, and you just felt one of the lads.
For a million Protestants, the final act of betrayal came in March 1972, when the British government abolished what they'd always regarded as their parliament at Stormont.
We feel that we, in our endeavour to provide just government in Ulster, have been betrayed from London.
These emotional scenes had a powerful impact on members of the choir like Mervyn Lewis. He wanted to do something. There was to be a rally in Belfast. He planned to go, but he daren't tell his mother.
The boys had said to me, we're going to Belfast tomorrow. And I took it for granted that he said there was a bus run to Belfast tomorrow. I took it for granted it was football because they were both football fanatics. And I was at lunchtime and somebody came to the door, and I think Arthur maybe knew that answered the door. And it was somebody calling for the boys. And said they were going to Belfast, and I think, lucky enough, Arthur may have said, well, who's playing, or what is it? And I realised it was a rally, either a vanguard rally, some type of rally, I'm not sure what exactly. But we just said, well, no way are the boys going to that.
What did you say to Mervyn?
I just advised them and told them that, as far as I was concerned, it wasn't on, and I didn't really think that what they were doing was anyway right. Because I always believed that at the end of the day, if the country or province was under threat, it was the legally constituted forces who would have to deal with the thing.
The friend who had come to the door was another choir boy, Lindsay Mooney. Lindsay was a boy who kept himself to himself.
Very quiet, very pleasant, very conscientious. I mean, we must have done his 6, 7 years as a boy chorister, and then after he was broke, he was in the men's choir, and we were delighted to have him.
That day, back in 1972, Lindsay Mooney didn't stay at home like Mervyn Lewis, but took the bus to Belfast. There, he joined thousands of other young Protestants who flocked to the rally from all over the province, boys eager to become men in defence of Ulster. To the UDA, the rally was a vast reservoir of potential recruits. After the rally, Lindsay Mooney joined the UDA. Not even his closest friends in the choir knew. He went on to become head choir boy. He also became a UDA bomber. Nobody knew his secret.
We just, as usual, came to choir at, suppose we had a practice about 10:30, and Lindsay didn't show, and nobody knew, even his brother, who were in the choir, didn't know where he was.
And then about half an hour after, Dean Good landed and said that Lindsay had been killed in an explosion in the Free State the night before. Turned out Lindsay had been up down trying to blow up Kirk's, I guess Kirk's bar in Lifford. Like, that was a big shock to everybody in the choir, because nobody thought in the wild world Lindsay Mooney was anyway involved with anything. Turned out he was a sergeant in the UDA. A sergeant, nobody could believe it, that he was involved in anything. Because the nicest, quietest fella you never met in your life.
Couldn't believe it, somebody who I had stood beside every week and had probably maybe socialised with as well, and yet you had no indication that he was anyway involved, other than the involvement that maybe we as Protestants all had at that time.
Lindsay Mooney was the choir's first casualty. In 1973, the head choir boy was blown up when the bomb he was trying to plant exploded prematurely. His target had been a pub across the border where he thought IRA leaders were meeting. The explosion blew him to pieces.
Well, when you went in, you had his mother and father, and his mother was devastated. Never seen a woman change so much overnight. She's completely destroyed. And you went in, you had Lindsay's coffin, like, it was sealed, it couldn't be opened. It was, as far as I know, they identified him by fingerprint or something. And you had these two men in uniform standing beside the coffin.
Uniform?
Paramilitary jacket on them and belt, black mask. And these sort of berry wee hats on them.
What did you think when you saw that scene?
Scared. Was glad to get out, to be honest. Not out of the house, just out of the room. It was frightening.
He was a good son and a very conscientious boy. And he attended his church regularly, was in the church choir, Boy Scouts, became a scout leader. And there was nothing too much for him to do as regards his family.
What was Lindsay trying to do?
I would say he was trying to do what his fathers and his forefathers had done before, protect his country, and that's all.
Many people would not equate what Lindsay did with the kind of things that your fathers and grandfathers did.
Well, I would say to that at the time of our fathers and forefathers, we had a government in power in England that stood up for us. But in the latter time, I think they let us down. That's my opinion.
Now, this was the sort of trauma it was possible for a youngster to get into at that time. And unfortunately, things haven't changed. It's still a great possibility for the youngster to get idealistically led into ways we'd much sooner he didn't go.
And in one way, you sort of learned that there's no way you get involved in anything like that. It was such a shock at the time. You stay clear of any organisations. In a way, it was good came out of it. I think. Oh, I stayed clear anyway.
I feel that we were so lucky that we were here that day. We could have been away that weekend and the boys could well have gone on that bus run. And who knows, they could have joined something, some illegal organisation, and it could well have been their turn to plant a bomb, to do something.
Lindsay Millie became involved, just out of being there at the time, and then maybe he was unfortunate in that either he took or somebody took him that extra step. I mean, Lindsay Millie there, but for the grace of God go I. Suppose I could have just as easily been in the wrong place at the wrong time and taken part in something, and well, goodness knows what might have happened.
By the mid-70s, all the boys had left the choir. Their childhood was over. They were now setting foot in the world beyond. But finding work in Londonderry wasn't easy. Ian Gallagher ended up selling car parts a mile or so from the cathedral.
So this chappie plonks this parcel on the counter, and we thought, well, old units, and he says, this is a bomb. Of course, a friend of mine, our colleague, he says, no, you're joking. And of course the retort was, it's no joke. And he pulled a revolver, and his colleague with him produced a box of matches, and with a very shaky hand lit a fuse and said, you have about 2 minutes to get out. So when they left, we left quickly behind them. And I can remember there was a small store close by. I ran to it instinctively to the back, face down, hands over my head, and I lay for what seemed like an eternity. And I said to myself, this, it's not going off, the fuse has gone out. So I got up and left the store, went out a side gate, and again, I suppose instinctively, decided I better tell the people in the houses that there's a bomb and it might go off. And so I think I got to the second door whenever there was a blue flash and a bang, and my job was lying in the middle of the street.
As the heart was ripped out of the city, jobs became even harder to find. The only growth industry was the security forces. That's why so many young Protestants joined the police. The RUC offered good money and great comradeship. That's what friends in the force told Mervyn Lewis.
They were all saying they enjoyed it, and it was good fun. It was something to do. So I joined it in March 1977. And I must admit, it was fantastic. The comradeship in it was great, and you had your own social club. You had always something to do. And it wasn't like a police station, it was like a home. And everybody knew everybody, and you knew if you were going around a corner that whoever was meant to be behind you was behind you, and you could stake your life on them.
Paul Sayers sought wider horizons, eager to see the world beyond the walls of Londonderry and the turmoil of Northern Ireland. So Paul joined the Navy.
I was away for 6 years, and living with people from both sides of the community, Catholic and Protestant, in the mess. Living in England for those 6 years dragged out the, made me feel much better about the situation. Like, you know, I could understand both sides of the argument. I could find out more about life.
When Paul left the Navy in 1981 and came back home to the waterside, he found that attitudes had hardened and prejudice was deeper than ever.
Nothing had changed in the estate where I lived from before I went away. Everything was exactly the same attitudes to Catholics, etc. And I think that astonished me more than anything. I stayed in the waterside for a long time, drinking, etc. But I also travelled across to the Derry side, across the other side of the water, which some would see as mainly nationalist area of the town.
Didn't you feel at risk as a Protestant going over to the Catholic area?
I don't think I really thought about it that much. It just seemed like all one town to me. I didn't see a divide. There were people who said going across there you're mad, etc. You know, you get yourself shot or you get beat up or whatever in the bars there, you know. But I never actually thought about it. I knew what life was like on the Derry side.
On one of his trips across the river, Paul met a girl called Julie. He was impressed because she was buying her round. It was some time before he discovered she was a Catholic. A year later, they were married. How did your family react to you marrying a Catholic girl?
My immediate family were happy enough. All of my wife's family and the relatives were happy enough, but there were some members of my wife, my mother's brothers, sisters, who were a bit surprised at the start and then didn't bother coming to the wedding. But most of them did arrive. Some of them just wanted to come to the reception, and I thought, well, that's fair enough. They didn't want to go into a Catholic church, but then they never came to the reception either. We had two people officiating at the wedding. We had the parish priest and Dean Good, who was Dean of the Cathedral, but he was retired at that time, but he came out of retirement to do the wedding. But I think that eased some people's minds. People thought I was being indoctrinated on the Catholic faith, etc. But once they seen Dean Good was there, it made them feel a bit more at ease.
It's not unusual for somebody to get married, for a Protestant to get married to a Roman Catholic. As a rule, it's something that the family would much prefer didn't happen. Both families, probably. But when it does, I always said it's certainly not the end of the world for anyone.
And you went to the wedding?
I was, yes, that.
Did you enjoy it?
I did.
How did Paul's family take to him marrying a Catholic?
Well, I'm sure, just to say, probably one's family would much prefer that there wasn't intermarriage, but when there was, I always hoped that the family would give the son or the daughter, whichever it happened to be, all the support they could, and would hope that on the other side the same support was given again, and that something that was bound to be difficult could be worked out happily between them.
After 10 happy years in the RUC, Mervyn Lewis left the force unscathed. 2 years later, he went for a late-night drink with a friend.
It was the 22nd of May, 1988. Met James and decided I would call him for a pint. We drank Sunday night. Not right enough for an ex-choirboy drinking on a Sunday night. But I went out for a drink. Left the bar, went down the street. There was a bag at the front window of the car, and I put my toe to it and flicked it away, nothing in it. Never thought looking under the car, because I didn't think anything was going to happen. I've been out of the reserve for so long. Got into the car, reached over, opened the passenger door, let James in. Switched the car on, looked round to see if there was anything coming up. I was just going to swing round the road because there was a security barrier. The road was blocked off. It's just as the car moved, there was this, never forget it, a big orange flash and this somersault cloud of black dust. And James said to me, was that our car? So I told him in no uncertain terms just to get out. And the next thing I remember, there was a wee small drain running across the footpath. I remember my elbows being stuck in the drain, trying to pull myself along, but I couldn't go anywhere. And this unmerciful heat. And then, I don't know how James done it, but he lifted me and carried me up to the corner of the street. And in the remember a policeman coming down, talking to me and trying to comfort me, and all I wanted to do was see how my legs were, because my left leg was awful sore, but my right one wasn't too bad. Wasn't much pain on it. And then I was never so glad to see a soldier in all my life. Don't know where I came from. And he just jumped in, he threw his rifle back, must have been to one of his mates, and take it, he put a tourniquet on my right leg because it got very, very tight. And then I could hear bells, alarm bells ringing, and the pain was desperate, a burning sensation. Then all of a sudden, the noise stopped, the pain left me, and I put my two hands behind my head and sort of snuggled down to go to sleep. And I think it was a soldier turned around and hit me a slap in the face. And it says, keep that boy awake or you're going to lose him. I went to theatre on the Friday. Mr. McLeod wanted to have a look at the legs, because it was in plaster right to the top of the legs. He wanted a proper look at them. And he came in on the Saturday morning and said that you'd be as well with the right one off, because you're going to be running back and forward here for surgery for long enough. And maybe an infection set in 3 or 4 months or 6 months, whatever, and you'd have to lose it anyway. I don't know how far up you could lose it then. But he said he would get a second opinion, and only got a second opinion on the Monday, and the other doctor said the same.
Did they ask your view on losing your leg?
Well, the way I looked at it was he knew what he was doing.
Do you think when people see events on the news like that happened to Mervyn, they have any understanding of what it really means to a family, to a mother?
I don't think they do, and we're probably all guilty of it, including myself. You saw it on the news, something happened, and you'd say, well, isn't that dreadful? And I mean, let's face it, a week later you didn't even remember that chap's name. And apart from the family, immediate family and friends, who really cares at the end of the day? I mean, we're left to gather up the pieces.
When you left school, you went to work for a building firm. Many of the people were Roman Catholics. Were you apprehensive about working with Roman Catholics?
For the first year, there was a certain fear and lack of trust on my part, but I soon overcame that fear, and after a year or two, built very good relationships with many Catholics in the company.
How's it going, Greg? Good. A lot drier today than it was yesterday. A lot drier today.
All my fears have gone about
Yes, Tommy.
working with Catholics.
Better than it was yesterday.
I now have many friends.
You're going very well. Pat tells me you'll be ready for Joyce on Thursday. Good.
One time a friend asked me to go to the Bogside for a party. I sort of looked at him first, and then seen in his eyes he was serious. So I said, yeah, okay, I'll go. And it was one of the best nights I ever had. I really enjoyed it, and the people in the Bogside were delighted to see us. You would have thought we were from a different country. They were really delighted to see us.
Did they know you were Protestants?
Yeah.
From Derry?
Uh-huh.
And what did they say to you?
They welcomed us with open arms, and they were just really delighted that we made it to their party. You get total satisfaction of building an estate, seeing it finished, and seeing it being a mixed estate. It's a great feeling to see the estates going that way.
What do you find most frustrating about the past 20 years?
The feeling of not been able to do anything about the Troubles. You feel that you could contribute in some way, but what the feeling of not knowing what way to contribute. If I could give up everything I had, give up my job, my home, to work for peace, if I thought that goal was possible, I would do that.
You'd give up everything?
I would give up everything I had if I thought I had the answer for peace. And yeah, I would give up everything I had.
Michael Jordan, the youngest member of the choir, went on to become a traffic warden. His experience of some Catholics wasn't as fortunate as Alan Robinson's. He suffered intimidation, which he still finds difficult to discuss.
People do get to know you, and you're bound to come across certain incidents from time to time, you know, but...
What sort of incidents do you think?
Well, you get names called at you and other things, you know, get followed about, maybe.
What sort of names do you get called?
Well, being like, as I say, the minority that do know you, or whatever, being a Protestant, like, oh, you're going to get called a lot of names, you know, Orange, B, and stuff like that, and, you know, and we know where you live and all this sort of carry on, you know, we'll sort you out. And the majority of people, you're either classed as one or the other, but there's a certain minority of people, they go really further than that, you know, like it's just so deep-rooted, maybe, in their minds or whatever, that you shouldn't be that other religion, you have to be my religion, or you're not good enough, you know, sort of thing, or whatever, you shouldn't be here if you're not what I am.
4 years ago, Michael got married to Wendy, and they bought their first house. This summer, they decided to move.
Right. It's such a pity that young people have to go to such extremes if they want a peaceful and quiet life, that they feel that they have to move out of such a nice part of the world just because of some religious hatred that's been here for hundreds of years. And I want to start a new life away from it and forget about it for a while. Because I would hate, if we ever had children, to bring them up in this environment. I really would. I would hate my children to go through what I've gone through over the last 20 years. I don't think I could stand by and watch them grow up and learn what I learned and saw what I saw, and not be able to go out and play with the wee fella down the street because he's not the same religion or whatever. I don't know whether it'll take a year, 20 years, another 20 years before it'll change. At the present moment in time, I don't think I'm prepared to stay here and wait for it to change, because it might never happen.
Michael and Wendy have moved to England. Their house, like dozens of others on the estate, is left unsold. Today, a flute band bears the name of the head choir boy who blew himself up with his own bomb, Lindsay Mooney. His father plays the cymbals.
The band was actually formed by members of his own scout troop who came to me and my wife and asked if it would be all right if I could form a band. Because they had a great respect for Lindsay as their scout leader. His memory lives on the band, from the oldest members to the youngest. They all respect his name. That means a terrible lot to me, for to see lads like Alistair and the rest of the boys I've seen there on the stage. They seem to be just as proud as I am of it.
Like, I never personally knew him, but through the Mooney family, been involved with the band and how I became involved with the band, I've grown to respect the name Lindsay Mooney, and every time I play in the band, should we be marching up a street or on a stage, that name Lindsay Mooney and the respect for that fella is in the back of my mind at all times.
There is a group in Londonderry dedicated to a more optimistic view of the future. It meets next door to the cathedral. The Ulster Project is trying to break down the sectarian barriers by bringing young Catholics and Protestants together. Perhaps surprisingly, given his past flirtation with the UDA, Ian Gallagher is one of the organisers. This summer, he's taking a group of Catholic and Protestant teenagers to America for a holiday away from the Troubles.
They're probably the same as me. They've probably grown up and had no occasion or very little occasion to meet somebody of a different religion. So maybe this is the first time that they'll get that opportunity.
It takes at least 6 hours to travel from Derry to Shannon. So that means we'll be leaving Derry about 5 o'clock in the morning. No, we're not joking, and it's nice at that time of the morning. The birds are singing, and your mammies are crying, and you'll get up that morning, I'm telling you.
The man who once marched in combat jacket and dark glasses is now studying for the ministry.
I was a member of all the Protestant organisations that one could be a member of. I was an Orange man, I was a member of the Apprentice Boys, I was a member of the Young Unionists. I'm now a member of no religious or political organisation, except, well, the religious organisation of the church. There was no blinding conversion, I just grew up in the church, and as a result of a friendship that I had with a curate who was in St Columbs Cathedral, he sowed the seed of vocation and ministry. I don't know, I suppose, grew up, did a bit more thinking than maybe I did previously, and realised that maybe, well, if there's ever going to be peace in Northern Ireland, people are going to have to live together.
Tickets for draw. Tickets for £1,000 draw.
There's a great community atmosphere around Derry City Football Club. Got a weekly crowd at the Brandywell, 10,000, which is not exactly mixed. There'll be obviously more Catholics than Protestants because it's in the Bogside area of Derry. A lot of Protestants again are frightened to go to the Brandywell. But there's a great community atmosphere. It's a great relief. You can forget your troubles, you can get the troubles, etc. for a couple of hours on Sunday afternoon.
Do you think Northern Ireland will ever be like the Brandywell?
It would be great if it was. It would be fantastic if it was. You know, there's everyone knows everyone else, and people realise there's Protestant and Catholics there, and it's a great community atmosphere.
Paul says the man who married a Catholic still goes back to the Protestant cathedral where he once sang in the choir. But he only goes back when the cathedral is empty.
I don't like going anymore now because of the way that it's been taken over by the political side of life. 2 or 3 times a year they have orange parades, and afterwards orange men all congregate in the church, and I don't believe that the church should be used for that, and that annoys me a great deal when I have great affection for the church.
Well, it's something you'll not forget in a short space of time. Like every morning you get up, it's just like you just put on your shoes. I have to put on this damned old lamp. And at times you do get cross. You do get angry. Very angry at times. There's no point lying down under it. I have as much right to be in this town as anybody else. Never done anybody any harm. I don't intend to do anybody any harm. Just try and rebuild my life again and get on with it. So it'll just take time. And time's one thing I've plenty of at the minute. So it is.
When you look back over the past 20 years, what remains in your mind about what has happened?
The dreadful suffering. To me, that is the worst of all. Not only Mervyn's suffering. I mean, thousands of people have lost their lives. Thousands of people have been maimed for life. And there's no country worth it. There's no country worth shedding that amount of blood for it. And I mean, if anybody thinks that what they're doing is to help or save Ireland, all I can say is God help Ireland.